sequence. But you know, the bond that your characters have is so vital. The bond that, you know, the friendship that gets them through this experience is so important to the story. I'm very curious, how is it building the chemistry between the two of you as actors when you're not necessarily scene partners in the traditional way?
You said how was building?
Yeah, like what was kind of the process between the two of you to like kind of build the chemistry that your characters would have when we don't really get to see you on camera. So I feel like I'm curious what the process was at all different for you.
I mean, when we're not on camera, we can look at each other. Right. So yeah, I mean, I think we clicked pretty quickly in the chemistry read. Yeah.
These guys were like best friends when we because it was all over Zoom at first. We saw both Brandon and Ethan in a room, and I remember we like pressed the mute button, and then like Jocelyn and myself were like, how long have they known each other? Like, whoa, it's like really cool that we're casting friends,
right?
You know? And then, but that was the first time they were meeting. Like that's that kind of that alchemy that existed. And in fact, I'd say that the genuine most difficult thing about directing these two was subtly and outwardly reminding them where they were in their relationship relative to the story, because they have such a chemistry. Like even when they're doing their reads and they're acting their characters, there'll be subtle ticks that's like, yo fam, we're gonna go to Waffle House later. You know, just like built into the way in which they kind of are, because they're really good friends. Sorry to interrupt.
No. Waffle House is how we became friends. lots of Waffle House. As for, I think, and that did so much to when we had to perform and we weren't going to have each other anymore. We would still be there. You know, if it was Elwood's POV, I'm right up on Jomo's back. If it's Turner's, he's right up on Jomo's back. So, we knew that the other was going to be there. And we were open to the whole experience of, you know, kind of playing it all to camera. And I think, yeah, because we trusted each other, that creates a space in which we're able to be open and to explore this thing, and know that Brandon's still going to be present in the scene with me in the same way that I'm going to be present with him, even though we're not on camera. So. Yeah, being able to have that in this new environment and exploring this new way of making a movie is it's a blessing, because I don't know how it would have worked if I did not like him.
Or maybe Jomo, because you're kind of in the middle of it too. I mean, you're kind of thrown right in there.
It also gave us a really amazing opportunity to get closer to the crew in a way that I never have before, to be able to establish a relationship with Jomo and with the other camera operators and with other members of the crew. Because, man, when you're watching it, they did such a great job of, they're all oneers, which really allowed us to, get immersed in the scene during our takes, and there's so much like open space, that you can see. But for us, it's like 270 degrees of open space and the world that these characters are living in that you're able to see. And then that remaining, 90 degrees is the camera and the crew all right in front of us performing. So I'm glad that we had the opportunity to get close to everyone, because, it's not just Brandon that I have to feel comfortable exploring this material with. It also has to be the crew, who is going to be directly in front of me, that we have to trust, and that eventually has to fade away so that we can deliver our performances.
I'm curious if kind of performing with the crew at that close proximity kind of added a vulnerability at all to your performance, or kind of put you in a different position that allowed you to kind of get into character, or to think as the character in a different way? And if it's no, that's okay too.
I'm not sure if it's the proximity of the crew. I mean, it must have had an effect. as Ethan's saying, like there's a lot that we had to kind of let disappear and dissolve in order for us to feel like we're actually in the space and only talking to one another while we're just staring down the lens. But I think in hindsight, there's like a lot of different aspects of the way that we made it that did shape our performance, like the aspect of being so physically stifled, because when we're staring down the camera, we're not moving. I mean, sometimes I was in the wheelchair kind of like rolling around, but for the most part, yeah, we're just very still and not moving our bodies at all. And that, I think, very much, yeah, communicates to the position that these boys are in, of just being stuck in this confined space, being forced in this moment. So yeah, it's interesting that some of these new ways of exploring it did very much inform the way that we explored.
Nicholas, to talk about kind of putting all this together, I mean, maybe the question about kind of finding the friendship between these two boys on camera is something that happened in post-production, or something that you worked through and trying to figure out how to capture their chemistry and their bond, at least so that the viewer would see it, or before they feel it as well.
I mean, I think the most direct way to sort of, I can think to encapsulate that is like, it was really easy, honestly, in a lot of ways because of the work that was done on the set, but that's not quite, it's a little too simple, because it's like, it was very clear, but that in the same way that how clear the intention was between all the movements and the camera, because aspects of the performance, the growing relationship between them was already being thought about, and were they making eye contact yet, or were they kind of looking away a little more, it was really built in. But I think all that clarity means that when you get to a cut point, there's so much writing on those cut points. You can't just do it because you kind of don't love what happens right after, or like everything has this pressure on it to be a development, or all the attention on those moments, I think, just gets like hyper focused. So in a way, and which is kind of in a way my favorite, or one of my favorite ways to edit, which is really like every choice we're making is, there's lots of levels it's got to work on. You can't just cut on action and be like, that's fine, no one will notice that cut. It's like there's a reason why. And so anyway, when it relates to there were times, I guess, when we had to continue the language that you guys had formed in your body language and how you were relating to each other, aka the camera, and how you had in the filming of it decided when they were connecting more or less. There were times when it had to come to a cut point, and we were like, or it should come to a cut point for lots of reasons. And how do you continue that feeling? Do we go to another moment of Turner's POV from a Turner POV, or do we go to an Elwood POV and express the difference between the places they're in right there? And so I think we had to just kind of hone into the logic that was already embedded in the footage and the performance, and try and not break it with the edits, or if we wanted to break it intentionally, choose a moment to really say, oh wait, I wasn't expecting that one to work that way, and why are we seeing that now? And that opens up a new set of questions for it. So, but the groundwork that was there made it all about the way we were affecting the meaning, rather than trying to create that relationship, I think. Yeah.
Right. Sort of last question, and this is also for Nicholas and for RaMell, but about the kind of archival footage that we see in the film, the found footage we see throughout the film. I was very curious about the placement of those things, finding the right spots for them, and also the importance of that to kind of give